The DJI Osmo Pocket. Such a weird and odd looking camera. Kind of like me. I'm weird and odd looking. But it's also such a beautiful camera. Kind of like me. Yeah, okay, I'm not beautiful. Let's not go there. But I do love using the Osmo Pocket. And here's my favorite 7.5. I'm not sure how to do 7.5 with my fingers. Anyways, my favorite 7.5 tips with the Osmo Pocket. First off, thanks for joining me. Everybody's time is precious, so I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. Now, if you clicked on this thumbnail, it's probably for a couple of reasons. Maybe you're a brand new user to the DJI Osmo Pocket, maybe you've already had it and you're looking for a couple tips, or maybe you're thinking of purchasing this camera in the future. Anyways, I hope this video helps you a lot. My first favorite thing about the DJI Osmo Pocket is how easy this thing is to use. Right when you unbox this camera, it's almost ready to go. Sure, you got to register with DJI, which is a bit of a pain, and we can talk about that for a long time. But anyways, once it's registered, you're ready to go. You can download the upgrades with your phone. You're all set. What I suggest you do is just take this camera out and play with it. Go shoot as much footage as you can. Find out what you can do with it and find out what you can't do with it. I make tons of mistakes with this camera. When I first took it out, I did not have pro mode, so I had to use everything in auto mode. And I wasn't a big fan of it, but finally pro mode did come out and I was able to adjust all the settings that I wanted to, and I was very happy with it. Matter of fact, the reason I got this camera was because the family was going on our very first trip to Walt Disney World. My kids are still young, so we were very excited to go, but I wanted to capture some photos and some video. But I didn't want to bring a big camera. At work, I'm a full-time TV producer, so I have massive cameras that I use, and obviously I'm not going to bring one of those to Disney World. So when I found out about the DJI Osmo Pocket, I was very excited and I wanted to give it a test. Of course, I was skeptical. Such a tiny little camera could it give me the quality that I wanted. I was very impressed with it early on. And I brought it to Disney. Like I said, I was only in auto mode, so I wasn't extremely happy with it, but you just kind of live with it. Funny story, the day we were leaving, DJI gave you the update so you can have pro mode on the camera itself without the phone. I like how small this camera is, and I don't really like using it with the phone. Maybe you at home, you love using it at the phone because it gives you a bigger viewfinder and it gives you a couple more options and it's easier to go through the menu. That's great. For me, I just wanted something small that I could just take and capture the memories. And that's exactly, for me, what the Osmo Pocket is. It's so easy to use. You get it out and you can use it, and nothing should stop you because you don't have to worry about setting up a gimbal. You don't have to worry about a tripod. You just take this tiny little mechanical gimbal. It'll smooth out your shots. You just got to practice with it. Another favorite of mine of this camera are the modes you can shoot in. Of course, this camera can shoot video, it can shoot photos, it can shoot hyperlapses and time lapses. Right now we're going to talk about the video modes. One of my favorite things about this camera is that you can shoot 120 frames per second. I mean, that's pretty good considering the quality of cameras out there that can't shoot 120 frames. It does crop the shot in a little bit, and that's a little bit annoying, but once you get to practice a little bit, just back up a little bit, set your focus, and you're ready to go. Now, you can only shoot 120 frames in 1080p HD. You can't shoot in 4K, which is unfortunate, but I mean, how many cameras these days can shoot 4K 120 frames? Not many. So the fact that this can shoot full HD 120 frames, that's awesome, and I really appreciate having a little camera like this that can do that. Most of the times I'm shooting in 1080p 60 frames per second. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because I want to slow it down later on in Premiere or whatever program you use, Final Cut Pro, whatever you use, that's fine. Now, I have the control that I can play it as is. 60 frames doesn't look horrible to the person watching at home. Maybe it looks a little odd if you really love your 24 frames, but 60 frames is still a good shot, and it gives me that control that I can slow it down later. Now, of course, you're saying, dude, what's wrong with you? This camera shoots 4K 60 frames. Why not just shoot that and slow that down? True, and I do shoot a lot of stuff in 4K 60 frames. I love it. The 4K looks fantastic on it, and 60 frames, I can slow it down just like the HD footage. Plus, I can archive all this stuff if I want to use it later when 4K becomes a little bit more popular. The reason I don't shoot it all the time is because my computer is just way too slow and it just can't keep up with the 4K codecs. So if you have a better computer at home, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But don't let people pressure you into shooting 4K if it's going to clog down your computer and make it super slow. For me, I need a workflow that works for me, and shooting at full HD at 60 frames is a pretty good workflow for me. When there's something important that I really want to get and maybe capture and save it for later, sure, I'll shoot in 4K knowing that, well, hopefully eventually I'll get a little bit more powerful computer and I'll be able to handle that 4K footage no problem. Another great thing is your choices of frame rates. I can shoot 24 frames, which a lot of people love that cinematic look. Some people still shoot 30 frames. I'm not judging, there's no judgment here. And some people shoot 60 frames because they like that look. Again, whatever you need to do. If you're shooting professionally for a broadcaster, you better find out what they want and you shoot exactly what they want. But if you're shooting your own YouTube stuff, it's your channel, you do what you want, right? Don't let other people pressure you into shooting a frame rate that you don't like. Come on, it's your camera, you shoot what you want. Am I right? Now, another one of my favorite things still involves modes, but we're jumping to hyperlapse, motion lapse, and time lapses. Now, this camera has all three of this, which is amazing in such a small little camera. A recent firmware has given us some great hyperlapse options, and if you haven't used them yet, go out and practice those hyperlapse. You're gonna really enjoy it. One of my favorite things about this is, of course, the motion lapse. To be able to set that camera up, set your points on your camera, tell it how long you want the intervals to be, and boom, it does it for you. I can't tell you how excited I was when I first set this camera up. I mean, you can use a gimbal to do this, but that's a very, very complicated thing for a gimbal to do. It's expensive, takes a lot of time to set it up. But for the DJI Osmo Pocket, you just set it up, set your points, hit record, and pray that the sun gives you the shot that you want, of course. Sometimes it doesn't. What are you gonna do? Now, of course, I told you earlier that I really only like using this camera with the camera itself. I don't really like attaching the phone to it or even the wireless adapter. I just like the small use of this camera. But if you're gonna be shooting hyperlapses, time lapses, or motion lapses, the phone is gonna come in handy here. With the phone on a motion lapse, you can set 4 different endpoints where the camera can go to 4 points while you're doing your recording. I could be wrong, but so far on the camera itself, you can only set 2 endpoints. You set your in, you set your out, and you set it and it does a great shot for you. So if you like to use more than 2 endpoints, then yeah, get the phone out, hook it up. The phone's also gonna give you a bigger monitor to see your framing and see what your shot's gonna look like. So yeah, if you love doing that, go for it, great, no problem. Again, most of the times when I do my motion lapse, which is my favorite mode with this camera, by the way, I just set it up on a tripod, someplace secure, and then I set my in, set my out, set my times, and that's it. I also have my motion lapse and my time lapse set to record in JPEG. Now, the reason I do that is that you can take it back into post and your shots are more like a 4K shot. Because a motion lapse or a time lapse with this thing, you can't shoot 4K, it's only 1080p. But if you record the shots as stills themselves, you go into your phone and set your settings so that you record them as JPEGs. You can bring them any editing software, and then the photos are much bigger and you can manipulate them. One of my favorite things to do is take that JPEG sequence into Lightroom or even just into Premiere, and then you can manipulate it, and while it's doing its move, you can zoom in or zoom out or zoom into a specific spot on your motion lapse, and it gives you a little bit extra detail that you wouldn't get with a regular motion lapse. So look into that if that's something that you want, setting up your motion lapse to record as a JPEG still. Now, I will tell you, hyperlapse, I haven't used it a lot, but it is kind of cool. What my favorite thing about it is locking in on a target and being able to walk past it, and you get that kind of neat, fast moving, but you're still locked in and your focus is set on a specific object. I really do like that. I mean, hyperlapse can work for anything. If you're going for a run, if you're on a motorcycle, a bike, anything, hyperlapse will work really, really well as well. Now, the time-lapse feature is fantastic. I just prefer the motion lapse because it gives me that little extra detail and a little extra movement that I like in my video. So if you haven't tried those, get them out. Try all 3 different time lapses, motion lapse or hyperlapse. And you know what? You're going to screw up a bunch of times, but just go ahead and do it. I can't tell you how many sunsets I screwed up trying to get the perfect motion lapse shot, and the sun's going down and you're getting all, come on, man, get this shot, and something goes wrong, But you know what? Eventually, you get the techniques down and you should be really happy with the shots. It just takes a little bit more patience, and once you know what you're doing, it can give you some fantastic results. Okay, so now we're on to number 4, the tracking feature. Now, right now, I'm shooting on the Sony a6400, okay? Let's see if it's gonna track me. What's wrong, Sony? Why aren't you tracking me? Right, it doesn't have the feature. That's okay. If you had it on another gimbal, maybe the Ronin SC, it'll track you. Fantastic. But you gotta set that up. It's a bit of a pain. The DJI Osmo Pocket has some great tracking features. I don't use it a lot, but if you are out there and you're looking for a little bit of movement in your shots and you don't want to hire your own camera person, first of all, if you can, go ahead. That's a great idea. Hire me, hire somebody else. We'll always take the money. So if you don't have a camera person and you want to get a little bit of movement in your shot, using this tracking feature is great. You just set it up, make sure that green box is on you, and then you move and the camera moves with you. It's pretty simple to use and the quality is pretty good. The movement of the little gimbal does follow you around and is very smooth, which is exactly what you want with something like this. When you're tracking an object or tracking yourself, you just want that little green box around them. If you're using the phone attached to it, again, it's very easy. You can draw right around there. You're good to go. If you're using just the camera, just click until you see that green box, and then while you move, the camera gimbal will move with you. I've done this a bunch of times to just get a little bit of movement in my shot, especially if I'm coming from side to the camera to the middle. I don't like a big pan with my tracking, but just a slight little move, I think it just gives your video just a little bit of extra that you can't get with a steady shot. Now, number 5 on my list are the photo features on this camera. Now, I personally use this camera mainly as a video camera, and that's fine. But the fact that this camera can shoot photos, panos, 3x3s is amazing. And it's right there in the camera. All you have to do is switch it to the mode and you're good to go. Now, the camera itself doesn't take great stills, but it does take pretty good stills where you can use selfie stills. You can take stills of your family wherever you are, and that's great. Sometimes you just want to take a quick picture, and that's what the Osmo Pocket will do. But my favorite feature of the Osmo Pocket when it comes to photos is the panel shot. Now, you can set this up. It's very easy to use, and it gives you some great long shots. I really like it. I will give you some tips though. You really have, if you're shooting people in your shot, they really have to stay still so that camera can take its 4 different shots and pack that shot together to give you that panel shot. Now, it's not a big deal. If you're working with kids or animals, forget about it. You can try, but it's going to be tough and you're going to get some freaky artifacts in your photos. The 3x3 is also very cool. It'll give you a very big picture at the end of the day, and you can take that, print it, you can do whatever you want with it, and it's a nice, cool feature to have. I just think that the fact that this has a photo feature at all is a great bonus. Some people love using it. I don't use it often, but I gotta tell you, I love having it there and be able to take those panel shots when I want to get a nice shot of, you know, a building or a sunset or even just a sports team or something like that. It's great to have that and just try it out and test it. Sometimes it doesn't give you the exact results you want, but more times than not, it's kind of a neat feature to have in a tiny little camera like this. Okay, so number 6 on my list are all the great accessories that you can get for the DJI Osmo Pocket. Now, when I first got it, there were not a lot of accessories, and people were very upset at DJI for giving a product out there that people wanted to use, but not giving them the accessories to use it to the extent that they wanted to use it. But now I think we can safely say that there are a lot of accessories, maybe even too many accessories out there. I'm not a big accessories person for this camera. I told you I mainly like using it as a camera itself, and that's it. But I have used a lot of these other accessories, and I bought a whole bunch because I wanted to see what it could do. Some of them worked great, some of them not so much. My first accessory I would suggest for this camera is an ND filter. Whether you get a 3-pack or a 6-pack, the ND filters will come in handy when you're shooting outdoors and you're looking to get that shutter to the exact right shutter so you get the shot that you want, have that nice motion blur, and your shot's not overblown. Now, I have a simple pack. It's a 3-pack. It does a great job, and I'm happy with it. Maybe I'll expand in the future, but right now I'm pretty happy with my ND pack. Now, another one of my favorite accessories for this camera is the simple camera mount accessory. I screw it onto my tripod, and then all I have to do is take my camera, put it in the slot, and I'm good to go. Now, I will warn you, it's not the safest way to carry your tripod and camera around. There is a chance of it falling out, but I've done several tests with this thing, and it has not fallen out, including tests walking over the water with it, and it has not fallen out. But of course, if you want something more secure, there are mounts for it that wrap around the camera and will make sure the camera does not fall out. Now, another accessory that I have used several times is a simple selfie stick. Now, this isn't the rod that DJI and other companies are starting to sell now. It's a simple selfie rod that I attach to the tripod and the tripod mount, and all you have to do is hold it out there, you get the shot that you want. My problem when I'm trying to do some vlogging or any other shots where I'm involving myself, trying to shoot myself, my arms are just not long enough to get the shot that I want. Yeah, that's my own problem, I apologize. But anyways, I can get the selfie stick out. I don't use it as a full-size selfie stick, probably halfway, and then I'm able to hold that up and get the shot that I want. Again, because it's a tiny little gimbal with a mobile gimbal head, it makes the shot nice and smooth, and I'm super happy about it. I can even watch myself and view myself in the tiny monitor when I'm looking back in selfie mode. The last thing I will say about the accessories for the Osmo Pocket is that there's a lot of accessories out there. Of course, we were complaining there's not enough of them, and then a whole bunch came into the market, and that's great. A whole bunch of different companies make accessories. Some of them are better than others, but that's fine. For me, I don't like a lot of accessories, but I do use the ones that I think help me use the Osmo a little bit better. And if you like to use more accessories for your rig, that's great, go for it. Whatever makes you use your camera more and makes your camera use a little bit more fun, that's what it's all about, so go for it. Get those accessories that you need. The only thing I would suggest is start off slow, buy 1 or 2 accessories, find out how to use them and if they're gonna work for you, and then slowly build up your kit and your rig from there. Now, number 7 on my list is the dark side of the Osmo Pocket. I know, I'm a big fan of this camera, and most of you people at home are probably really big fans of this camera, and we love it, and it has a lot of positive things, but there are some cons when it comes to the DJI Osmo Pocket. The first one for me is shooting 120 frames per second indoors. It just does not like shooting that high of a frame rate at full HD indoors. You will get a lot of grain on your shot, and I've tried in several different ways. It's just gonna happen. You need a lot of light to make that 120 frames per second shot pop and give you that nice slow motion, buttery looking footage, but you need a lot of light. Sometimes you're not gonna have enough light, so I would suggest shooting in 60 frames. You're not gonna be as slow-mo, but it's still gonna give you the shot that you want. Unfortunately, it's such a little camera, such a little sensor, it just can't give you that power that you need when you have a low light situation. Another con that a lot of people have been complaining about is the battery. Right now, I've used it probably for 8 months, 9 months. I probably recharged it. I don't remember how many times, but we're talking a lot of times of recharging this thing. And of course, you can't replace the battery in this. So once that battery dies, that's it. You cannot get it back. I don't think they're gonna have a replacement for this, just the size of it and the way it's built. That's not gonna happen. So you have to know when you buy this camera, it has a limited life of this battery. And once that dies, you're probably not gonna be able to replace the battery and the camera will die with it. Maybe in the future, something else will come out and that's great. You can actually attach battery packs to it right now to give you a little bit more juice when you're shooting time lapses, motion lapse, which is great. I love that idea, but I just wish somehow that battery was able to take that out, recharge and put it back in. So if you did in the future need to get a new battery, it wouldn't be such a headache. And another possible negative, although I haven't found it to be the case, is the autofocus. I have fantastic autofocus on this camera. I really never had a problem from day one. Some people say with the recent firmware and the phase detection that has improved and the autofocus is better. But for me, from day one, my autofocus was great. However, that may be the camera that I got. Maybe down the manufacturing line, something happened and the camera you have has given you problems with autofocus. Hopefully with that new firmware, that's taking care of that. But for me, the autofocus seems pretty good, especially on a small sensor camera like this one. Now, my last negative comment about the DJI Osmo Pocket is a bit of an odd one. You see, it could be a negative or it could be a positive. Depends on how you view it. For me, when I take this camera out and I'm shooting, I have a lot of people watching me because they have no idea what this camera is, and that's fine. Most of the times people leave me alone. I'm up in Canada, a lot of polite people, they just look at me like I'm kind of a weirdo, which I'm okay with. Matter of fact, when we were in Disney, of all people, Buzz Lightyear came right up to me and wanted to know what the camera was. Of course, he didn't break character, which is good because why would Buzz break character? But anyways, he came right up to me and wanted to know what it was, which I found pretty funny. And actually at Disney, probably about 6 or 7 of the characters came right up to me because they saw the camera and it gave me some great shots. So sometimes it could be a negative to bring light to yourself using this camera. Sometimes it could be a positive. It's all the way you view it. Okay, so we went through number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of my favorite things and favorite tips about the Osmo Pocket. So here is number 7.5, and it's a little accessories case that I bought for the Osmo Pocket. Of course, everyone knows that the Osmo Pocket comes with this great little case. It's tiny, it fits it well, great. You can put it in your pocket, fantastic. I found, however, that when I did put it in my pocket, if I put anything else in there, change or keys, that the top of the gimbal head was just getting a little scratched and a little scraped by whatever else was in my pocket. Anyways, I found this great little case from Mega Gear. It's a leather case that you hook onto your belt and you can put your pocket into it. It's got a great size for it. It's exactly meant for the Osmo Pocket, so it fits in smoothly. It's very easy to use. It's got little clips. It clips into your belt, and then it's got 2 little clips that you just clip off and you open it and you're good to go. It looks pretty good. It's not, I repeat, it is not a fanny pack. Don't. It's not a fanny pack. It looks pretty good while on. Doesn't look great, but neither do I. So that's okay. It's just something very simple that now I know it's on my hip. If I need the camera, I pop it off, ready to go. If I need to put it away, I put it away, and it's always on my hip. I don't need to worry about it. It looks fairly decent. I'm not sponsored by these guys. I just found it online where I was looking for some kind of case to put the other case and pocket into, and this is what I found. It's a little bit on the expensive side. I think I paid probably around $20 Canadian, so you guys can do the math wherever you are. But for me, I'm pretty happy with it, and that is my 7.5 tip and favorite thing about the Osmo Pocket. So if you want to look at it, it's Mega Gear. You can check that out online. Now that was my 7.5 favorite things or tips on the Osmo Pocket. It's a camera that I truly love using. Matter of fact, I'm going to head out now and do some more shooting outdoors. It's a beautiful day, so let's get out and shoot. At home, do not let people intimidate you about this camera. A lot of people will say it's too small, the gimbal's not smooth enough, the battery, you can't change the battery, the focus, the sensor. Don't listen to them. If you enjoy using this camera, that's all that matters. You use the camera, you get the shots that you want. Great, that's all that matters. The best camera is the one that you use the most often, and I love this camera. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time. Take care.